How can Muslim youth spend their leisure time? Are there things they should or should not do? Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Youth Talk. I have with me in the studio Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim. Pleasure, Sheikh Asim, to have you with us.
Thank you.
I also have with me three participants. We have on my left Sami, who is a translator. We have Mahmoud, who is a translator. And on the right I have Muhammad, who is a student at the German University in Cairo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Sheikh Asim, in today's episode we want to talk about leisure time, or people's, youth's free time. From an Islamic point of view, should youth spend their free time in something specific, or what's the principle in that regard?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man ihtada bihudah. If we agree on the concept that deeds are judged by their intentions, so this means that whatever you do, it depends on your intention. In order for a particular thing to be accepted at the side of Allah, it has to have two important criteria in it. One, that the intention is purely for Allah. Secondly, that the action itself is in accordance to the Quran and Sunnah. It's not innovated and it's not forbidden. If we agree on this concept, then we know that Muslims should not have any leisure time that has no intention or purpose, because a real Muslim always have the intention to do something. He always has the intention to do something with a will or good intention. For example, your prayer, your fasting, and all the other forms of worship, the intention is for Allah Azza wa Jal. Now we're not talking about worship, we're talking about other actions such as playing sports, such as having a meal. These things are permissible to do, but if you add to them a good intention, they are transformed into a form of worship. So in this sense, Muslim youth and any other Muslim category, if they have a good intention in all what they do, then all their actions are transformed into worship.
Okay, I'd like to hear from the participants what they spend their leisure time in. For example, Sami?
Okay, I like some things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to do, like riding horses. That will be in my village when I'm traveling to my village in Upper Egypt.
It's something like reading Quran and making new contacts with new friends, and some sort like that.
And Muhammad?
Playing football, sometimes reading, and being with my friends most of the time.
Okay, so Sheikh Asim, you were mentioning about the fact of intention in what you do. So if somebody plays, for example, sport or something with the intention of being healthy or being having good physique, is that then something that's good to spend your leisure time in? Or your free time in, shall I say?
Anything that you do, you have to cross-examine it with Quran and Sunnah. So if there is nothing that contradicts with the Quran and Sunnah, then it is permissible for you to do. So playing sports in general, soccer in particular, if all the players adhere to the dress code in Islam, which means that they cover the area between the belly button and their knees, and they do not swear, they do not fight, they do not harm each other, they do not waste time, prayer time that is, they're prepared to pray to pray on time, and they don't involve any form of gambling, then this is something permissible for them to do. I know that this is a little bit difficult, especially in what we see in our youth, the rage, the impulsive acts, the amount of swearing, and the urge to win at any cost, even if it was at the cost of harming someone else, then this becomes haram. This becomes forbidden, because Islam promotes peace, promotes being kind to the others, and there's no justification for you to harm others, to insult others, just for the sake of your own pleasure. But before we move on to the other point, the Prophet ﷺ, lots of the brothers think that he told us to encourage our children to ride horses, swim, and what do you call this, archery?
Archery.
Yes. Actually, he did not. This is the teaching of Umar, the second caliph of Islam. Nevertheless, these forms of sports are quite helpful. They encourage the Muslims to be healthy. They enrich their character by making them look to something that is noble and fine.
What about when friends get together just to sit and talk, for example, or go out somewhere, for example? Not necessarily play a sport.
Again, you have to cross-examine this with the Quran and Sunnah. What type of chatting are they having? Are they simply spending the time talking about permissible things, about cars, about sports, about school, about the economy, about things that concern them and they would find it suitable to spend time talking about? Or are they spending their time slandering people, backbiting, saying dirty jokes, trying to make plots and plans to date this one or the other one? Then this becomes in the form of the forbidden things. It all depends on the objectives and on the tools used in these meetings.
And, well, I seem to be the one who's doing all the talking.
Okay, having agreed that our life on earth is so limited and short, and let me now mention a very remarkable sentence I have read for Avicenna, one of the most famous scholars in the peak of the Islamic civilization. Once he said, "Oh God, I ask you a wide life, but not a long one." Should I hear some comment from you?
Who was this?
Avicenna, Ibn Sina.
Well, okay. With all due respect, he was a scholar in the sense of materialistic sciences. But in terms of religious sciences, some say that he was not a Muslim, because he wrote so many things that doubt the existence of Allah, and he went into philosophy into a very serious and dangerous thing, but he's not our topic today.
But apart from his philosophy and what it pertains to the theology and something like that, I want to stress upon the importance of this sentence. It's according to the Islamic instructions, it has to do with the Islamic instructions. Okay, here you.
Well, again, this is a point that I don't think we need to elaborate a lot on, simply because it was not from the Quran and it's not from the Sunnah. We can have so many sayings of intellectual people, but that does not mean that we should follow them, because as Muslims, we have the Quran and the Sunnah to benchmark and follow what they teach us. The Prophet ﷺ told us that on the Day of Judgment, people will be asked about their lifetime, what they have spent it in. And they will be asked about their youth. How did they utilize their youth and strength? They will be asked about their knowledge. What did they do in the things that they knew about. And they will be asked about their income. Where did they get it and where did they spend it? So this utilizes the whole idea and concept of your time. As long as you're going to be asked about each and every second of your life, then you should utilize this. Now, what this man said of wishing to have a wide life, not a long one, I don't know if he wanted a wide or wild life.
Wide.
Well, then it's a
Full
wide
of
life,
events.
meaning that he wanted it to be filled with
Yes.
achievements and so on.
Yes.
Yet, our Prophet ﷺ tells us that one of the best among you is that who Allah Azza wa Jal has prolonged his age in doing good deeds.
Yes.
So the longer you live with
More
good
opportunity
deeds,
you have for good deeds.
then you have a lot of benefits. So
Blessings.
it's not what you do only, though it counts, but also the length of your life adds a lot of value. It was reported that the Prophet ﷺ, there were two brothers, and one of them died before the other. All martyrs at the side of Allah Azza wa Jal. And they had a third one who stayed after they died for a while and then died afterwards. The Prophet told us that he is in a higher position in heavens. So the companions were astonished with him. The Prophet, both of them died as martyrs. So he told them that this year that he lived afterwards, it included so many days of fasting and praying that Allah Azza wa Jal knows best about it. So yes, we do focus on quality, but also quantity does count.
I want to ask about the rule of playing cards.
Okay.
A
'Cause,
modern form of...
Most of I spend most of the time playing cards at university.
at university?
Yes,
Maybe not the purpose.
most of my colleagues.
Okay, what kind of cards do you play?
Playing cards,
What type of games do you play?
estimation.
Normal kinds of games,
Yes.
not for money or...
No,
something.
not for money.
Estimation, tricks, drum,
Yes.
and so on. All of these cards are playing cards if it does not take most of your time, if it does not cause conflict between you and your friends, if it does not make you miss prayer, if it does not come to you in your prayer, then spending your time doing this, if it's once in a while, it's permissible. Providing that you try your best to change the queen, the king, and the jacks, moving their faces, because it's still considered to be drawing. Although I doubt that anyone would do this. Excuse me. Some scholars say that playing cards completely is out of the question. And others say, no, it's permissible, but with these restrictions. That is, you should have a special time to do it. It should not overwhelm your day and night, and it should not affect your prayer, with removing the drawings that are on the cards.
Okay, okay, we've got a report now, and we'll return with some more questions from the left and some questions there as well. Okay, first this report.
Fond of traveling around, reading somehow, meeting some friends, watching news sometimes, to some extent. That's it.
Basically, I try to find hobbies and stuff of interest that I try to maybe kill time with, but at least I'm learning something or gaining some skill. Of course, people have to have fun like most of the time, but also we need to like have hobbies or stuff like that, like to increase skills and stuff like that.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask us about how we spend our times and how we spend our money. So we have to spend it wisely.
welcome back. Mahmoud, there was something you wanted to say.
I ask about the best directions that one should channel his capacity through.
Towards. You mean?
Yes.
Well, this is depends on every individual, you know, and this is a portrait of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, that He did not eliminate the channels in one, or He did not limit, that is, the channels into only one. Every individual has his own capability to do something that may not fit the other. So those who have the power to teach and preach may not be able or may not have the power to spend money. And those who are wealthy and have the ability to spend money and they have the capacity to sponsor projects, Islamic projects, may not have the ability to worship Allah Azza wa Jal extra to that He has already ordered them. For example, they cannot fast voluntary days or cannot pray voluntary prayer. And on the other hand, those who are deprived from money, deprived from ability to teach and preach, deprived from other means of charity work, find it easy for them to fast the days other than Ramadan and to pray night prayer for God knows how long. So you cannot limit the channels of utilizing your time into one channel. There are so many things, and the sky is the limit.
Okay, Sheikh Hassan, concerning sport again, let's talk about, or males, of course, now at the moment. Are there certain sports that males can play and certain sports they shouldn't play, or is any type of sport permissible?
Why did you exclude females from
Well,
sports?
because that was going to be another question.
Okay, well, then let us stick with that first question. Again, there are so many types of sports around, and you have to look at the Quran and Sunnah to be able to determine if it's permissible or not. For example, shooting is a sport, and the Quran and Sunnah do not say anything against that, so it's okay. But if you come to kickboxing, then the Sunnah says you may not hit the face. So any sport that involves hitting this face is not permissible. Any sport that involves harming others is not permissible. So for example, if you do martial arts and you have full contact contest, this is not permissible. Because the objective of this contest is, or competition is, to harm the one who is against you, your opponent. And this is un-Islamic. I know that people would say, well, what about if he is not Muslim? I'm going to hit him real hard. Again, you're hitting him not because he is not a Muslim, because it is a competition. So your intention is not pure. Don't try to justify it. Go back to the basics. Is it allowed for me to hit the face? No, it's not. Then it is not permissible.
But what about a sport that, I mean, if you're going karate or martial arts or something, the objective isn't really to harm the one in front of you, but it's to hit a certain area in the body which will gain you a point, for example. I mean, your personal intention is not really to harm, your personal intention is to win. But, I mean, so what in that then?
Is harming involved in the process?
In a sense, yes.
Then it's not permissible. Because you cannot talk only about your intention and not look at the action itself.
The consequences as well.
So if I have a good intention of calling people to Islam, this is good, right? But if I go to a discotheque and meet a 5'10" blonde and I want to dance with her, invite her for a drink, in order for me to call her to Islam, is this acceptable? Definitely not. So it's not only the intention, it has to go hand by hand. The intention and the deed itself. Otherwise, you have a problem. If you have a good intention and the deed itself is not good, this does not fit. And if you have a good deed, but with a very awful and bad intention, again, this is not acceptable by Allah Azza wa Jal. Boxing is completely forbidden. It's completely unacceptable because it involves hitting the face. And this is a sport that Islam forbids. It's not me, and it's the Prophet ﷺ who told us not to hit the face, to avoid hitting the face.
So, no, go ahead.
And again, we come back to the martial arts thing. There are two types. There is a full contact competition, and there is a competition that does not involve full contacts. It's only points. The one with the points, it's okay because you're not harming anyone.
So that would, the reason I'm asking is because, I mean, sports really fills up the majority of the free time that people have. What about sports like wrestling, for example? I mean, wrestling is a sport, again, it's rather aggressive. It can be aggressive, but it's not necessarily intentionally aggressive.
What kind of wrestling? The Hollywood wrestling? Or
No,
the
not
Roman
the WWF,
wrestling?
the Roman wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay, Roman wrestling was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Actually, it was a criteria to determine if this man is allowed to fight within the Muslim army or with the Muslim army or not. So whoever came and he looked young, the Prophet ﷺ would ask him to wrestle with someone else. So this is acceptable, providing that they're not wearing something that shows the areas in their bodies that should be covered, which is from the belly button to the knees.
Okay. Muhammad, there was something you wanted to...
I was asking about boxing.
About the boxing
yes.
question.
I spend most of my life boxing.
I should
Boxing.
stay away from that. Well, no, seriously, I did some martial arts myself, but again, you have to know what's halal and what's haram. If you learn, there's no problem in you learning martial arts.
It's when you come to use it.
You don't compete. And don't, when you fight with a colleague or so, avoid the face. And you don't have to harm him. But it's good as a self-defense. It's a good disciplinary sport. Now, in boxing, there's no way you can do that in there. You have to.
Yes, but,
the aim is winning, not harming.
Well, you will never win without harming.
Precisely, yeah.
But what's the case if these sports like boxing, for instance, are prepared for strengthening an Islamic team, for example, for struggling the cause of Allah? What's the case then?
Elaborate a little bit more.
For example, if we consider such a sport like boxing for preparing an Islamic team for struggling the cause of Allah, what's the case?
There are so different ways and methods of preparing this team. They could jog, they could weightlift, they can lift weights, they can swim, and they will be prepared at the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal. But if you mean that you want them to win in the Olympics or in some other form of competition, then again we tell you that this is not our objective.
What about a team sport where there are, for example, assuming that some are Muslims, some are non-Muslims? Is there any problem in Muslims and non-Muslims playing a sport together?
There isn't a big problem unless, Muslims dissolve themselves in the non-Muslims, in the sense that they start to have their allegiance to the non-Muslims. They support the non-Muslims against the Muslims, and as the case we find with so many people with their mixed allegiances. If you participate in a game because you want to burn some calories, you want to burn some fat, and you indulge yourself with a game with a non-Muslim player, just for the sake of utilizing your time and sports, I see nothing wrong in that. But when this partner of yours becomes best friend and you prefer him more than you prefer the Muslim friends, and you start thinking that, well, it's not his religion, but he is one of the best, and this may lead you to respecting him in the sense more than other Muslims, this is something you should think about.
Okay, I see. Sami?
Okay, catching animals. Something that we mentioned in the Holy Quran.
Hunting, you mean?
Catching animals.
Hunting.
Dog, yes, hunting. يسألونك ماذا أحل لكم قل أحل لكم الطيبات وما علمتم من الجوارح مكلبين تعلمونهن مما علمكم الله. Is the thing as a way to spend leisure time, or
This is
So
hunting, and hunting
Yes.
has to be with the intention of feeding. But to hunt for the sake of
but
hunting,
nowadays it's a way to collect money.
then this is a legitimate cause, yes. But I don't think that
Hunting for the pleasure of prey and
Oh,
victim
pleasure,
stuff.
yes, this is not acceptable, because the Prophet ﷺ
Sallallahu
cursed those who take live objects, live animals, as a shooting target. And I think, if I'm not wrong, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him and with his father, once passed by a group of youngsters putting an animal and trying to shoot that animal with arrows. And whoever misses, the owner of the animal get to keep the arrows. So this companion of Allah, the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah, told them, who did this? He is cursed by the Prophet ﷺ, which tells you that Islam asks us to be kind even to animals, and not to do what, for example, some countries do in sending hounds and horsemen behind or after a small fox from one region to the other, and they make an event out of it. No, this is torture. You want to kill the thing? Just go ahead and kill it. But don't keep on doing this as a festival, and at the end of the day, you are killing an animal without any justification at all.
Okay, we've got a break now, and we return after this short break. Welcome back. Sheikh Qasim, so far we've been talking about sports in general and sports concerning men or males. What about females? Leisure time for females, should it be inside? Should it be outside of the home, for example?
Well, it depends on the community or the society they're in. Women are exactly like men. If men have the right to play sports, then women have all the right to do the same, providing that no one watches them. Because women can watch men play sports, but men cannot watch women play sports. Therefore, they have to practice whatever they want to practice with the same restrictions, that is, not to show things that should be conceived and hidden. They may not involve themselves with sports that include hitting the face or harm the others. And they have to be in a place that no men can watch them, because this is one of the greatest dangers that could happen to a woman that has been protecting herself from others looking at her, and then we expose her in an Olympics or in whatever. This is completely forbidden.
Okay, Muhammad?
I'm asking if it is possible for the one who spend her spare time in doing something he enjoyed, and in the same time he is rewarded by God.
Yes, this is very possible. If you have the good intention, this is extremely applicable and possible. For example, there are different ways that you can spend your time. And let us put something that you like and enjoy. If you enjoy, let's say, painting, and you go to this neighbor of yours who is 70 or 80 years old, and who does not have the financial means to paint his house, and you volunteer to do this thing that you love, which is painting, to this old man next to you. Now you are doing something you like, but at the same time you are being rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jal. You are spending your leisure time in something that is useful for your neighbors and enjoyable to yourself. And alhamdulillah, this is a great reward and bounty
But that's a
from Allah.
bit of an exception. I mean, the most sports or most leisure time things tend to either contradict general, what's the word, peaceful atmosphere, or they have nothing to do with other people unless they're playing with us, kind of thing. I mean, can somebody, in the sense that you're talking about doing a type of sport or spending some leisure, spending your leisure time in something that will be beneficial to you yourself as well as the community, would for example social work fall under that? Volunteer work, maybe you like doing something like helping orphans, for example. Maybe that's something you like to do in your leisure time. Could that be an example?
It's a good example, and unfortunately we do lack the social work in our communities to the extent that people are happy doing it. It's usually as a form of punishment. If you cross a red light, then you're told to do 10 or 20 hours of social work for the community. And unfortunately, we should not be like this. We should be proactive. A Muslim should intend to work for the community, for the society, for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ tells us that it is the best among you are those who learn the Quran and teach it. So if you dedicate your time to teach those in the masjid, in the mosque, the Quran, you are among the very best. Also, those who know things more than the others. What happens if you are a certified teacher in English and you give those in your neighborhood 2 hours or 3 hours a week to teach them to develop their...
But is that considered leisure time then?
It is, because it's
not your
something
real work.
you're doing for Allah Azza wa Jal. It's leisure. No, it's not work. You're working in the morning at schools, but in the afternoon, it's your time. So whatever you do for the community, it's your leisure time, and you're utilizing it to get the reward from Allah Azza wa Jal. Instead of wasting 4 or 5 hours in front of a TV screen watching things that harm you on the Day of Judgment. Watching movies is also something that you may spend in leisure time, but is it permissible or not? Now, how can we evaluate this? A person that spends 4 hours a day watching movies, and a person who is spending 4 hours a day teaching others Quran, Sunnah, mathematics, geography, whatever. Of course, the one who adds value to the community is far greater than the other one.
Sami?
What about going to resorts with families, men and women, youth?
Mixing men, women,
Yes,
strangers?
Yes, as we see.
No,
today.
this is not acceptable. If you
What
go,
about taking your family and your brother's
Daughters,
family?
brothers.
if you go with your family to a resort where there is no sin appearing in front of everybody, if you go to a beach resort and everybody is in their bikinis and you say Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, this is a great sin. This is not acceptable. But if you go to a resort that you are in your cabin with your family, you have the wilderness, you have a jungle, you have a forest, you have the deserts, you have different ways of entertaining yourself without exposing yourself to something that is forbidden, and without exposing your family to something that is forbidden. This is completely permissible. And we all do this. We, as families, we all entertain our families once a year in our vacation. We go either to a mountain resort, or we go to Mecca, we go to Medina for prayer in the masjid, or we go off-roading. And this is permissible. There is nothing wrong in that. But it's not an obsession in the sense that you're spending 11 months traveling and moving from one resort to the other. No, it's something that can entertain your family within the boundaries of Islam.
Providing in Muslim countries or abroad?
No, we talked about this before. We said that going to non-Muslim countries has its shortcomings. And it is not preferable, if not forbidden, for a Muslim to go to non-Muslim countries. Because there are conditions that we've mentioned before, that to go to a non-Muslim country, you have to have three conditions. One, you have to have a degree of knowledge that prevents you from accepting any doubts. And you have to have a degree of piety and faith in order to deter you from pursuing your lusts and desires. Thirdly, you have to have a legitimate reason, such as trading, learning, medication that is, for you to go there. But to go just for the sake of going, alhamdulillah, Muslim countries have everything that the West or the non-Muslims have, except the fornication, the booze, and so on.
What does Sheikh Asim do in his free time?
It was my question.
Whoa.
It's very important question.
God, I'm under attack now, huh? Well, I do a lot of things in my free time. I'm an aggressive sportsman. I play squash, table tennis. I do weightlifting, bodybuilding, that is, not weightlifting. I sometimes play volleyball. I have championships in squash, table tennis.
Okay.
Whenever there's extra time, I do some 8-ball billiards. I try my best to stay most of the time with my kids, though I do not do them justice, because I have so many other things to do beside my work, lectures, and sports. But I try to, I don't socialize a lot. I don't go out. I stay the remaining time with my family.
No PlayStation?
I hate computer games.
Why?
I don't know. I don't like computer games. I don't like soccer. I think
Do your children hate computer games?
You know, some of them do, some of them don't, and they play. I don't prevent them from playing, except of course they play with the volume down, and providing that there are no programs that involve women and.
But what about women and things that are not?
They don't play.
What about games, for example? I mean, PlayStation is something that's very, very common these days. What about games that, like a football game? I mean, there are images of football players running around playing football. I mean, is that something that's not permissible? I mean,
no, this is okay, because they did the wrong, not us. And it's like watching cartoons. So watching cartoons is the same thing. We did not pay for that. We did not draw it. They did it. It is okay, especially nowadays with the exposure to the media. This is the least of your worries, to have these images with your children. But you have to give them an alternative to look for. Without any substitute, you don't have anything to give them to substitute what they have. So cartoons, PlayStation, even with these images, as long as they're not forbidden images in the sense of sex, violence, and gods, for example. There are games that involve getting the people from the dead. And you have the powers to resurrect people, for example.
But it's just games. I think it's
And
just
some of
games,
them have
not.
crosses.
Well, the thing is that this game, although it's a game, does Allah approve of it or not? Does it please Allah or not? There are games that involve crosses all the way. Games that involve demons that get the people from the graves and resurrect them. If you approve of this, and you, although it's a game, it's a joke, then is it okay to joke about Allah? It's a joke. Is it okay to
Not
joke
about
about
Allah,
the Prophet
but,
ﷺ?
No.
So again, you have to draw the line between things that are allowed and things that are not allowed. Is it my intellect and logic that tells me, yes, it's possible, or no, it's not possible? Or is it the Quran and Sunnah? Allah Azza wa Jalla in the Holy Quran tells us and warns us that it has been revealed to you before that if you see people mocking or ridiculing the verses of Allah Azza wa Jal, be aware, do not sit with them until they talk about something else. Otherwise, you are like them. And Allah Azza wa Jal will bring the non-Muslims, the hypocrites, all together and throw them in hell. You did not approve of that. But sitting with people that ridiculed or made fun of Islam made you part of it. And if you play with a game that ridicules Islam or talks about crosses or demons or talks about Allah Azza wa Jal, then though it's a game, you are part of it.
Sheikh, what about equipping with non-Muslim knowledge or sciences?
Anything that you do to spend your leisure time, if it adds value to you on the Day of Judgment, which means that you are performing a number of worship, then this is acceptable. If it adds value to you on this life, in this world, such as learning how carpentry, learning plumbing, learning car mechanic, then this is again something acceptable and permissible. If you learn something that does not add any value at all, such as magic, on the contrary, it may harm you more than do you well or good, then this is not acceptable. Spending your leisure time in acquiring knowledge about geographical places, about the history of nations, this is something useful for you because it adds value to you. It adds to your knowledge about other people and cultures. Spending your time reading about history, reading about politics, reading in economy, studying geography, studying geology, whatever you do, if it adds value to you in this life, then this is a mean of utilizing your time, your leisure time, in something that is useful.
We can consider them scientific strength for Muslim.
Depends.
That's why
Depends, because it adds value, but it should not mean that it is adding value to the strength of Muslims, because strength of Muslims is recognized by military strength, by scientific knowledge, by behavior throughout the community. So it's not only the power, it's also the values and ethics that people share and treat each other with.
Is there a certain kind of books that one can read in his spare time?
Again, anything that adds value to you, it's okay for you to spend your time in. But unfortunately, there are so many bad books that a lot of the Muslims may read, and I know this is going to be a surprise again, that people read without knowing that it is not allowed for them to go through. Yeah. For example, if you read the novels of Harry Potter, it's a novel, it's fun, it's for kids, but it involves magic. And in Islam, it's not a trick. This is actual magic where you transform an animal to a human being or vice versa, and you do wonders. And in Islam, this is one of the 7 major sins, which is black magic. Now, I'm not talking about, swapping the place of a card here or there, or tricks that you can do with movements and so on. I'm talking about the actual magic that is applied in such novels. Well, the Da Vinci Code, also it's a famous novel. I think it was made a film.
Into a film.
It talks about talks about the existence of Allah Azza wa Jal, and they talk about if Allah exists or no or not, and about a cult that is trying to prove something. Or I've read about it, a preview about it somewhere. So it depends on what you read. If you read vulgar novels or novels that involve pornography and bad things, then this is forbidden.
So then you would say then any fiction novels not supposed to be in a sense,
fiction
right?
fiction novels are okay. If you're reading Star Wars, for example, things that involves planets, a feud between two planets. It's fictional. Okay, you're spending your time in something that is not that useful, but it's not forbidden. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, and you need this half an hour a day just to,
So you can read it, but you can't watch it.
No, even watching it. Watching it, again, if it does not involve forbidden things, it's okay. And forbidden things are illustrated in having females and having music. So if there were to be a movie that does not have females and music, it's okay to watch, and not occasionally, but once every while. For example, Saving Private
Ryan.
Right.
Though it's a Jew director, though I did not see the movie itself, alhamdulillah, but I was told that it did not have any women in the cast, and that there, of course, there has to be a certain amount of music in it. If a person lowers the volume and does not listen to the music and watches the movie, I see no harm in doing that. But again, this is not the priority of a Muslim to spend his time in.
Sami, I think there was something you wanted, you had mentioned before.
I want to ask about the reading in religious scripts like Bible, Gospels, and other non-Muslim scripts.
Okay. Islamically, this is not allowed, because the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once met the second Caliph, Umar, who was his companion, and he saw a paper in his hand. So he asked him, "Oh, Umar, what is this?" So he told him, "It's a paper from the scripture." So the Prophet was angry with him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he took it away from him and told him that if Moses were to be alive, he would not do anything but follow me, because I came with the final revelation. So you have to recite the Quran, and this is more than enough for you. I know that a lot of the viewers, and maybe those who are participating with us today, would have second thoughts regarding this, because they would say, what prevents us from reading other scriptures as long as we're confident of what we have? The answer would be, first of all, are you confident of what you really have? Do you have enough knowledge that gives you the power to investigate other religions without casting any doubt to your own? The majority would, I would presume the answer would be no. Secondly, you are ordered at the side of Allah to study your Quran, to study your Sunnah, and this is what you're going to be questioned about on the Day of Judgment. It's not the other scriptures. Therefore, it is forbidden for a Muslim to read other religious books than Islam, unless he is a researcher. He's a knowledgeable scholar of Islam, who is capable to study the other
refute fallacies and
yeah, well, I personally, I read the Bible. I have 3 or 4 copies of the Bible in home. I have them on CDs, and I sometimes, and a lot of the times, I benefit from them in my lectures. But it's crystal clear for me that these books are not authentic. Though, to those who are not learned, to those who are not strong in their knowledge of Islam, this is not permissible, it's not acceptable.
thank you.
What then should, if one were to look for something apart from sport and apart from games and apart from movies and all the things that we've been talking about in a sense, what can one do in his leisure time to be, for example, a better Muslim or a better youth?
Well, to be a better Muslim, you have to study Islam. But to be a better youth, the sky is your limit. You have so many things that you can utilize your time in, and not necessarily to be forms of worship, not necessarily to be learning the Quran and the Sunnah, though they are the prime of knowledge. But still, if you don't want to, there are other things. You can collect stamps. I know a lot of people that collect stamps. You can build aircraft models. Don't fly them though. You have a problem then. You can ride a bike. You can socialize with people. You can form groups of young youth, especially on the internet now, which is something that everybody is using. You can form a club or a chat rooms to call people to Islam. You can make mailing lists to non-Muslims, sending them invitations, sending them
Cards.
highlighting things about Islam that would benefit them. You can engage with your friends in learning mechanics, car mechanics, plumbing, carpentry. You can work part-time just for the sake of learning trading and economy and so on. You can do so many things with your leisure time, but the most important thing is to stay away from trouble, stay away from drugs, alcohol, women, stay away from anything that makes Allah Azza wa Jal unpleased with you.
Sheikh Qasim Luqman Al-Hakim, thank you very much for joining us on Youth Talk. And thank you, of course, Sami, as well as Mahmoud and Muhammad. Thank you all for joining us. That's it for this episode of Youth Talk. Next time we'll be back again with a new topic. And until then, Assalamu alaikum.